AI-enabled attacks grew 89% year over year.
Globally, cybersecurity professionals are in a bit of a shortage situation right now.
It's good to have a core kind of a portfolio, right, where you still have your globally diversified and low-cost fund. Then maybe you can have a satellite portion where you capture the whole rising trend.
In the stack of cybersecurity, right, there is no one dominant leader, which is why, to Samuel's point, is that picking single stock makes it very difficult.
So you might think, oh, I bought 3 different ETFs related to cybersecurity, but am I more diversified with 3 ETFs? Not necessarily so.
When you think about using ETFs to express a thematic idea, really what you want to do is to capture both the incumbents, that gives you a bit more of a stickier revenue profile, and you're also looking at the new names. Sometimes it's possible that an incumbent could be replaced by a younger and new entrant to the market.
Looking to make better money decisions? Welcome to Money and Joy.
Everyone is talking about AI right now, but what if one of the biggest investment opportunities is not in AI itself, but the companies that are protecting the world from the risk that AI creates? And that's why today we're diving right into the cybersecurity industry and what investors need to know about it. Hi, I'm Hazelle from the Joyful Investors, and welcome back to another episode of Money and Joy. And joining me today, we have Richard and Samuel.
Hi, Hazel. Thanks for having me here. My name is Richard, and I'm with Global X for over 4 years. My work looks a lot at thematic investing and looking at the intersection where the future of themes played out, disruption happens across the globe, as well as economies, as well as looking at demographic changes, consumer behaviors. So how do then we put all that together into our portfolios? So that's really where my work sits.
Hi, I'm Samuel from Joyful Investors. I'm a private client advisor there. So I'm very happy to be here today to chat with you guys on this theme of cybersecurity.
Right, so artificial intelligence is literally everywhere in our life right now, right? So to some people, when you talk about AI, to them it means to say things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, where they're using it for their daily tasks. But for some other people, maybe AI is like a friend to me where I can talk to them, I can share my worries about. But of course, I think what really caught the attention of the world about how AI is really everywhere in where we live right now is at the start of the year. Not sure whether you guys saw, the China Spring Festival Gala, where we had the humanoid robots doing all the martial art flips, right? So that was what made people realize that, wow, so there's a lot of things that AI can actually achieve. Did that caught you guys by surprise too?
Oh, yes. I saw that. The way that humanoids are growing, and it's no longer a dream, a fantasy.
Oh, yes.
So it's happening right before our very eyes.
Yeah, so it's like so much different from what we could have seen 10 years, 20 years ago, right? But of course, I think where we are now is still far from perfect, of course, right? I mean, even for humanoid robots, we have probably also seen certain videos where they do malfunction at times also. Yeah, so one thing that we need to clear up is because some people might be wondering, so we are talking about AI, and then we have all these robots, right? So how do they actually come together? So is it all part of the AI ecosystem? So maybe Richard can help us to break down the different layers in this whole AI ecosystem.
Yes, thanks for the question. I think there is a lot of understanding as well as certain lack of understanding in AI. And I hope that we can, through this episode, explain a little bit more to our listeners. Now, the first thing is that most of us look at AI kind of looking only at the tip of the iceberg. That means like your chatbots, like your robotics, like your autonomous driving. And then if you dive a little deeper, you see the models, right? The models are getting cheaper, token training costs is falling, and that's increasing adoption. And if you dive a little deeper as well, you will see like your chips, memories, as well as the power equipments, networking equipments, as well as the data center equipments. So if you put all that together, what we have done over the years is that we have broadened AI to the whole many layers that we have put together. And because of this layering that we are seeing now, and also to the question, the topic of the day on cybersecurity, we are seeing this increase in the attack surface. So that's really where we're starting to see cybersecurity as a foundational layer of AI.
So in other words, if I could put it that way, so at the bottom of the AI ecosystem, we have like the infrastructure. So you mentioned some of the names, and then we also have like the enablers in order for it to work. And of course, at the top, we have the applications like robots, autonomous vehicles, and so on. And yeah, so you mentioned about how the attacks can become even more prevalent in today's time because of AI, right? In fact, I was reading a CrowdStrike 2026 Global Threat Report, and there was one statistics that really jumped out at me. They said that AI-enabled attacks grew 89% year over year. So that's almost a doubling in 1 year. So share with us, now with AI being so powerful, what's the importance of cybersecurity, and do you think it's a secular trend?
In our opinion, it is a secular trend. It's very structural.
Okay.
There are a few reasons for it. Like if you think about in the past,
Yeah.
where cyber attacks tend to be a little bit more human-led, you need a team that is very well versed in coding, in having the right resource.
Yeah.
And now what has happened is that AI is helping to democratize that level of capabilities
Yeah.
in cyber attacks.
Exactly.
So I give an example, right? We are seeing real life cases where AI is autonomously running 80 to 90% of the attack life cycle, where the human actor is only involved in 10 to 20%.
Wow.
Now, what does that say? First, it says that you do not need sophistication as a programmer. A lot of it can be done autonomously.
Yeah.
And through AI agents, they could also detect where the vulnerabilities are. They could also look at where exploit that vulnerability and then to scan the proprietary data within the corporate environment. And so that is really driving that excitement. So if you think about that again in another perspective, is that AI is helping to increase the scale of attack globally, continuously in real time. So that's on the part of the attackers. At the same time, AI is also helping the defenders, the names inside your cybersecurity industries, right? Helping them to innovate, to come up with solutions that acts as a kind of co-pilot to security analysts. Now, keeping also that in mind that globally cybersecurity professionals are in a bit of a shortage situation right now. So cybersecurity providers are using AI as a co-pilot, as an enabler, and working that together into the way that threat detection, automation, reporting, intelligence is being put into it. So we are seeing this great coming together of both cybersecurity and AI coming together, and we think that's something structural
Okay.
for the years to come.
So in other words, it can be like a double-edged sword also. It can help the attacker side, it can also help the defender side. Right? Yeah, in fact, I was reading, that same report, and there was a case that they highlighted involving a North Korean group that is called, known as Famous Cholima. So, and it's really interesting because when you think about cyber attacks, right, what people will think about is the traditional kind of hacking, right? But what this case was about is the attackers, they were posing as remote job applicants. So they were trying to get jobs with like legitimate companies, trying to get inside. And once they're in, they will use tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, help them to do their daily tasks, so that it will avoid raising suspicion. So it's a very different kind of attack from what we used to have. Yeah, and that is being enabled because with AI, now the attackers can make use of AI to come out with lots of creative ways on how they can go about committing the cyber attacks. So that's something that's really interesting, right?
And to your point, I agree as well. Like identity theft is one of the leading most popular cyber attacks that we have seen, right? Because if you think about the way that now it is no longer just writing malwares, but it's the easiest way is to have identity impersonation through many different ways, right? You can talk about having AI created voices that impersonates a CEO and then authorizing payments. You could also look at in terms of just how the weakest link within the whole supply chain for a particular industry could be just getting into a identity without credentials and all. You just get into the network itself and imagine what that leads you to. So yeah, you could literally, as they say, the cyber attackers can be living off the land within the environment of companies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How about for Samuel? Do you personally also look at cybersecurity when it comes to managing investments? And do you also think that it's a secular trend here to stay?
For sure, like what Richard has mentioned, right, this is definitely very structural, right? So I think when we look at how we should actually position ourselves, we think of a few things. Some people, they will think like, okay, now I spot this trend, right? I know that it's gonna be the next hot thing. So they go and try and pick maybe, certain companies that they think will do well, right? But I think I want to use this analogy that is,
Okay.
like a gold rush, right? We have this pick and shovel analogy, right? So I think we all know that if you're in a gold rush, a lot of people go out there, they want to, go and hunt for the gold, right? But we actually know that if you want to build sustainable wealth, it's actually the people who are, selling the shovels, right? So that no matter, who wins, right? All these people, they have to go through them, right? So I think in this current age of AI, I think cybersecurity is like the shovel, right? Right. We know that there will be a lot of AI companies, right? Some of them will do well. Okay. Some maybe after a few years, they might be displaced. But the thing that we cannot run away from, right, is that you need cybersecurity, right? So it's already embedded, right? I think to your point also, you mentioned about the huge surge in the threats and all that. I think
Yeah.
companies are also spending a lot if you look at the year on year, right, on cybersecurity spending, because they are coming to see that this is something that they cannot avoid. They have to really beef up. They have to solidify all these protection,
Yeah.
right? So that the companies, the processors can run, it can be secure. So I think it's important to understand that, right? But we have to look at it in a more measured way, right? So perhaps we could, look at ETFs to capture some of these broader trends so that we don't just bet on any one single company.
Exactly. So cybersecurity is a little bit like the infrastructure, right? It's no longer just like a nice to have, it's essential. In fact, every business or every company that digitalizes, there could be a potential cybersecurity customer, isn't it? Yeah, so that's how important, and that's why we say it's a secular trend here to stay, not just something that's a short-lived fad or something that's cyclical. So cybersecurity itself is a very big word, right? So maybe Richard can help us to break it down. Are there different types of cybersecurity? And is there also a particular type that is largest in market?
In the stack of cybersecurity, right, there are different players, different leaders. So
Yeah.
there is no one dominant leader in the stack of cybersecurity, which is why, to Samuel's point, is that picking single stock makes it very difficult. The second thing is, I would say, is that because AI is accelerating the innovation cycle, we mentioned about cybersecurity names using AI to come up with products to complement their platform, so as to create greater offerings for their client. So again, AI is also another fundamental factor that is looking at how those category leaders as well as the new players could change in terms of the way that they have these market share. But what I'd like to share is that if you look at cybersecurity, I think it's important to think about cybersecurity in a few ways. First of it, you think about it from a network security.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one that protects your infrastructure, your traffic. So names like Palo Alto, those are Fortinet. Those are the ones that are really involved in the whole network security. And then we move on to other areas like device endpoints. Most of us are using our devices more, and there's more devices
Exactly.
that's connected. So when you think about the device security, that's also important, and that's really where names like CrowdStrike comes to mind as a leader in the space. And there are other areas like cloud security. And what's becoming more and more relevant into the current time is identity and cloud security. So identity security, you have including your zero trust security. So names like your Zscaler becomes very much where we are talking about zero trust. In a way to understand it is like, for example, if you check in at a hotel, right? They give you a plastic key card. You can take the plastic key card and go to different floors, access different parts of the building, the gym, the swimming pool. But with a zero trust environment is really where we are talking about each time that you want access, you get checked. There is a verification process. So in a way, in such that is that because there's so many devices that's communicating at the same time, zero trust creates an environment that the user has to be authenticated each time. So you look at the whole stack of cybersecurity and what we have just mentioned, right? It's making the category leaders also trying at their very best to stay ahead, while new players, new entrant will be catching up with AI, lowering the barrier to entry.
Right, indeed. So there are really different types of cybersecurity. Yes, we understand the word cybersecurity, what it means, but if we zoom in further, there are so many other players involved in each part of the cybersecurity. And that's
That's
why earlier on, Samuel, you mentioned about the use of ETFs, right? So maybe you can share with us a little bit more on the role of ETFs in gaining exposure to this space for cybersecurity.
Yeah, so I think ETFs are really a good tool, right, for the everyday investor. So I think just a couple of things to note, is that really, let's say when you use an ETF, we also have to, look at the makeup, the structure of the ETF, right?
Constituents,
Because
yeah.
the constituents, right? I mean, some people think, oh, I just buy an ETF, then I'm very diversified, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
some of the, bigger names, right? Maybe in the ETF, maybe the top 3 to 4 names, if they already make up, let's say 30 to 40%, then actually they are also quite concentrated, right? You are making concentrated bets on these companies.
Yeah.
So you need to look at the ETFs, maybe look at something a little bit more balanced that can capture more of the broader trends so that, you are not so heavily concentrated, right? So it's good to have a core kind of a portfolio, right? Where you still have your, globally diversified and low cost fund. Yeah, and then maybe you can have a satellite portion where you look at some of these ETFs, right? So that actually you still capture the whole rising trend and the rising demand. So I think that will be a more sound way to look at how you actually construct your
I
portfolio.
think you brought a great point, and while you're speaking, one point that comes to me, about something that a lot of investors like to do is they think, okay, for instance, today I want to invest in cybersecurity, right? Very excited about it, so I start buying many ETFs that are related to cybersecurity. So all the different names, but sometimes they could be actually tracking similar companies. So the constituents could be similar. So you might think, oh, I bought 3 different ETFs related to cybersecurity, but am I more diversified with 3 ETFs? Not necessarily so, because if there are very close similar overlaps, then you're actually essentially doing the same thing. Same thing as you buying that one ETF and putting that same amount of money in.
I'm happy to chime in here, as what we do in terms of looking at how the space has grown. One thing for sure is that all thematic ETF looks to capture the long tail of innovation. And by that, I mean, like we know there are top players. If you
Yes.
rank by market cap, there are top players. And then there are also very new innovative companies that
Exactly.
are in the smaller cap range. So by constructing a basket that gives you exposure to the long tail of innovation, and there could be opportunities where these names could shine with newer technologies or at the forefront of new changes, new innovation disruption that's happening. So when you think about using ETF to express a thematic idea, really what you want to do is to capture both the incumbents, right? That gives you a bit more of a stickier revenue profile, more improving fundamentals, cash flow, operating margins, and all. And you're also looking at the new names that you want those innovation, because sometimes it's possible that an incumbent could be replaced by a younger and new entrant to the market.
Yes, there is. So, and since we are on this point, let us talk a little bit about, also portfolio construction and the long-term mindset. So if someone believes that, okay, cybersecurity is going to be a long-term trend here to stay, what kind of mindset that you think, Samuel, that investors actually should have?
If you go really back to the fundamentals of investing, right, we really want to think in terms of being a business owner. Right? Because at the end of the day, all these prices, they will fluctuate every day, demand and supply. But I think if you really ask yourself, let's say you have this example, if you are a business owner, right? Let's say you own a local business. You don't go and check, every day, what's the valuation of your company, right? What do you track? You track whether do the customers really like your product? Is there still a lot of demand for that? Right, so if you are very sure of that demand, then you won't be anxious, right? So you'll go about trying to just give the best product or the best service. So I think it's the same thing. When we look at investing in this cybersecurity trend, I think no doubt we have already discussed, that it's structural. It's gonna be multi-decade. Companies are just gonna spend more. So you just want to make sure that you are able to capture that. Yeah, and you don't want to be too worried about the fluctuations. Yeah, as long as you have crafted your portfolio, okay, a core plus a satellite exposure, then I think we are good to go.
Exactly. So I think portfolio construction rules are very important. Just because you love cybersecurity now, you think it's the future, but it doesn't mean to say the whole portfolio is just invested in cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
So a reasonable allocation could be something like I put, say, 5-10% inside cybersecurity, but that is just one theme that you are looking at. And then there will also be other themes as part of the entire portfolio. And like you mentioned, even within that cybersecurity theme, you want to have diversification. So you have a core, you have satellite. So these are the important portfolio construction mindset that investors should look at when it comes to cybersecurity. And also one thing is, I think it's also important, of course, to keep yourself up to date along the way with changes in AI, changes in cybersecurity. But when we say keep yourself updated, I think a lot of people will think that it means to say every day, I must go and read all the news. Make sure I follow up with every single piece of news of cybersecurity or AI. Honestly, I don't think that should be the case because not every piece of news are really important or worthy, or they might change the fundamentals. So, but again, it also depends on like whether you are investing in ETFs or whether you are picking individual stocks, right? So usually those who are more passive with ETFs, I think it pays more. It's better for them to just pay attention to the longer term trend. Don't need to keep yourself, busy with everyday news. But of course, the important updates along the way, those are the things that, yes, you want to know about. Yeah. So that is like finding a good balance, right? In order to keep yourself on pace in this journey.
So I would add to that as well. In general, thematic investing tends to be a bit more of, you must have a bigger risk appetite. Now, because of the possibility of a greater volatility, how the technology plays out, as well as the chances of smaller names with higher volatility compared to your blue chips. But where we are seeing making sense for thematic investing is that investors are looking at where the long-term trend plays out. So when you think about thematic investing, what really you're doing by adding thematic investing into your portfolio is to future-proof your portfolio. When you invest currently with sectors or countries or regions or between stocks and bonds, you're investing in the current market structure. So thematic investing looks to future-proof your portfolio, what the future looks like. And that's really what you want to do. But of course, this is a promise, and there could be changes along the way. And where we as specialists in this field, we look at how is this changing, how is this shifting, and how do we then inform investors to make the next best call of action.
Right. So you mentioned about volatility. Yes, I also believe that volatility is here to stay, regardless of which themes you're looking at. But of course, when it comes to tech, AI, cybersecurity, we could potentially see higher volatilities because a lot of things are still changing and developing. In fact, interestingly, despite all the excitement about AI, at the start of this year, we've seen that cybersecurity stocks were under pressure. So only until May, which is quite recently, that's where we saw that huge rebound and recovery in the cybersecurity stocks. So there will be things like this where there is a disconnect between the strong long-term demand and the short-term price performance in the stock market. So how can investors make sense of this in both of your view? Because this is definitely not going to be the last.
This is something that I think comes up time and time again, right? People see that, this sector or this trend is doing well. But how come, the price doesn't seem to so-called correlate with that, right? Yeah, but I think we must also understand a few things. Towards the end of last year, right, with a lot of the hype on AI, right?
Yeah.
Some of these names, they may have run ahead, right, of the fundamentals, and they are trading at very high valuation. So, the market doesn't move up in a straight line. So it's very normal to have pullbacks once in a while. Right, so I think that's one thing that we have to note. Increasingly, as we saw moving into the year, with all the geopolitical tension, and even more recently, right, we see that inflation is coming back, right? So now I think the consensus is for one rate hike by the end of the year, right? So this can also be another possible factor, right? Some of the investors may, see this happening, and they may want to move their money to safer assets. They may not want to park so much in growth assets when they realize that, the rate hikes are actually might might possibly be coming about. Yeah, so I think we have to understand that for volatility, like you mentioned, it is something that you have to accept if you want to be in the stock market, right? So it's, for example, if you want to go to a concert, you have to pay a price to buy the
Exactly.
ticket. If you want to be in the stock market, volatility is the price that you have to pay. You have to accept, so that over the long run, you still can get that compounding return. But in the short term, volatility is the price that you have to pay.
What differentiates between a stronger investor and one who might lag behind is whether you're able to capitalize on all these opportunities, right? So when the price are down, that could be a good opportunity for us to capitalize on and to have some position on cybersecurity. And I mean, it's not just about cybersecurity. It can happen to any theme, any sector, any kind of stocks. So the kind of mindset shifts that we need to have as an investor, it would definitely be helpful during times where the markets are inefficient like this, where we have the disconnect. Yeah. So aside from looking at opportunities, I think we also need to talk about risk, right? So yes, we talk about how great cybersecurity is so far, but Richard, are there any possible risks that investors should be aware of when it comes to the cybersecurity space?
Yes, while we balance it out with all the pros and what are the structural uptrends of cybersecurity, like we talk about demand, we talk about IT spending that has been very sticky and growing, especially in cybersecurity spending. It's growing about 15% per year, where the broad IT spending is only about 10%. So we are seeing that there's more spending and it tends to be less discretionary. So Chief Information Officer would definitely not want to move away from spending on cybersecurity. And where we're also seeing is that cybersecurity right now is also a small portion of the broad IT spending. So there's a lot of upside in terms of where cybersecurity spending could look like by the end of the decade, 2030. In one estimate, we look at it like a yearly growth of 15%, and potentially when you weigh off the damages that you get from an average cyber attack, it's about $5 million US dollar, versus where you are looking at how much you can potentially save your firm. There's a lot of pros. Now, coming to the risk side, what we have been talking about is a lot around the valuations. Some of these leading company names are priced for very strong growth. So what we call as a perfection regime, where there's execution and it doesn't match out. And that's when investors start to penalize, or investors starts to get a little bit worried about whether this theme is still durable. In the sense of like what we see in earlier part of the year, where we mentioned about SaaSpocalypse.
That's another one.
Yes. and we do kind of put because cybersecurity in a way is also a bit of software related stocks.
Okay.
Right, cloud software related stocks.
Yes.
So we do see that how cloud started playing out when you move from a typical local environment to a cloud environment. There was also a lot of massive growth. There was a lot of massive successes, as well as what we call as M&A. So investors do need to take note that as we go through this process, some of the platforms will start to get bigger and bigger. Not every names in the portfolio itself would enjoy the benefit as much as the theme grows. So those are some disruptions that's happening. And also I think it's also cognizant of the fact that it's important to also look at where the theme really fits within the portfolio itself. Now, cybersecurity at Global X, we look at it as one of the more, it's a growthy theme, but yet resilient at the same time, because of the demand is resilient. We are seeing structural growth, essential. We are looking at the budget spending. And on top of that, we are also looking at now government and regulators are making companies responsible for their own cyber attack responses. So they are taking these companies to task. At the same time, there are also acts like look at the Cybersecurity Resilience Act coming out of Europe. So there's a lot of fundamental underpinnings of this theme itself. So while we remain cognizant of the fact that some of these valuations concern the M&A kind of phenomenon that's happening, where the platform gets bigger and bigger, we are also thinking that as long as you are diversified within the basket, you do find yourself riding along. So the rising tide will lift all boats.
Yeah. So to add on, to watch out for hype cycles as well, because moving forward, we don't know what's going to happen, right? And
Yes.
we certainly don't know where the share price is going to become for cybersecurity, for other AI stocks, for software as well.
Right.
But at any point in time, if let's say you realize that, hey, everyone is talking about cybersecurity now, the news is reporting everywhere, you see your colleagues, your friends, everyone talking about it, then you also have to be careful whether there's any disconnect between the valuations, the share price, whether it's overstretched versus the earnings. So these are risks also that investors should be aware of at any point in time in the next 5-10 years to come for cybersecurity. So before we wrap up today's discussion, what is one key takeaway for investors on cybersecurity?
Definitely is something that you can consider seriously to have a little bit of exposure in your portfolio. But I think I will still reiterate, I think what we have been discussing, right, about the allocation, the position sizing is important. And definitely even the type of ETFs that you are using, right? Not just like Richard mentioned, not just focusing on a few of the top names, but you also may want to capture some of the newer names, because you really don't know who will be the winner. So I think if you have a structured, systematic approach, then your portfolio will be able to ride this wave.
For us, we do think that if you think of AI as the engine driving the future economy, then cybersecurity looks very much like the safety system accompanying the engine itself. And AI is also coming into play into cybersecurity. So now a lot of the discussions is around how does AI gets monetized? Where does AI application layer comes in? So cybersecurity is one of the areas that we are seeing AI playing out, right? You see a lot of the firm names that we earlier mentioned, they do have, they invested money into AI co-pilots helping their security analysts to kind of automate, detect, report. So that's really where we are seeing AI coming. And because AI is helping on both sides, you mentioned earlier on helping the attackers and helping the defenders as well. So it's broadening the user base. So this is really where we see that adoption layer is playing out. And then underpinned by that is the spending by corporate spending on IT budgets are also within the area of cybersecurity that's growing as well. So long, in a nutshell, I would say that if we look at how AI is playing out, then cybersecurity becomes a more of a foundational layer that you definitely could think about when you complement it with AI.
Yeah, so if I could use an analogy, you can think of cybersecurity as like the plumbing of the technology, right? So when everything is working well, nobody looks at that. But when things starts to fail, then that's where people notices it. So it might not be very cool, very sexy, but it is definitely essential and it's here to stay as the world digitalizes, right? So thank you, Richard and Samuel, for joining me today and sharing the insights on cybersecurity and AI in this session. Now, so one thing is clear. As AI advances, cybersecurity can only become even more important, making it a space that investors can't afford to ignore. So are you currently also invested in the cybersecurity space? Let us know in the comment section below and stay tuned for more conversations ahead.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow us on LinkedIn and also like and subscribe to the channel. Leave your questions in the comments and let's keep building money and joy together.